Is Retatrutide or Retatrutide approved by the FDA? The FDA has not yet approved Retatrutide, even though it's a big buzzword and everyone in the longevity medicine space and peptide space were really excited about some of the initial findings. These studies have yet to be finished on their phase 3 clinical trials. And so in this video, what I'll do is I'll talk to you about some of the restrictions that are in place, why these new medical innovations do take time to come to the market. I'll also show you some of the interesting indications that they've seen so far in the research on what this triple agonist can do. So I'm Regan Archibald, appreciate you being here. What we're going to do in this video is uncover all of these nuances so that when Retatrutide is available, you can work with your medical professional and find out if it's right for you. This is not medical advice. This is me sharing some of the interesting research that I found on Retatrutide. So let's jump in. So first of all, how many of you have heard of Retatrutide or Retatrutide? It's everywhere, and for good reason. I think this is some of the biggest medical breakthroughs that we've ever seen on this whole GLP-1 cascade. Retatrutide, is it a naturally occurring agent? Well, first of all, the thing that Eli Lilly did is many research facilities have studied GLP-1, and we now know that there's a pathway for GLP-1, and that's where Ozempic came in. Ozempic now has class action lawsuits based on some of the side effect profiles. In many of the studies, we were disappointed because it proved to completely reset the metabolic system and downregulate weight to the high teens as far as overall percentage of body weight loss. But most of that was muscle. And then we have tirzepatide that comes in, and this is also known as like Zepbound and Mounjaro. Tirzepatide had fewer side effect profiles, but also outperformed Ozempic or the GLP-1 alone because it was a dual agonist. And what researchers had tried before, they said, okay, GLP-1 alone, what if we include a GIP? And this GIP, they found it created better insulin sensitivity. It allowed for greater energy expenditure. You had a very similar reduction of hemoglobin A1C, a little bit better with the dual agonist. Now the new one, Retatrutide, which Eli Lilly is working hard to get FDA approved. There's several in their Triumph series. There's multiple studies, like the Triumph 4 study. They just released the outcomes of the Triumph 4 studies. And they found that participants on the higher dose, like 12 milligrams per week of injections, they lost the most weight, up to 28%, or the average person in the study lost 71 pounds. I mean, that in 48 weeks, that's just breathtaking. That's almost the equivalent of like bariatric surgery. But the thing that often gets overlooked is that group also had the highest level of side effects. In fact, one of the side effects, interestingly enough, was that people did not want to lose weight that fast. They said, I'm done losing weight. I don't want to lose any more. But they found that they have better lean muscle preservation because of glucagon that's in there. They also found that they had a decrease in osteoarthritis. Very substantial, 76% of the people in the study actually had a decrease in pain. And they had better function in their livers. So looking at these kind of metabolic markers internally, their livers, their kidneys, things look better even from a cardiovascular perspective. So why is it not FDA approved yet? Well, the Triumph 3 study, which is for obesity and diabetes, this is where the criteria of the FDA is very clear. It's like, phase 1 is to show that it's safe, and that's usually done in rodent models. Phase 2 is to prove that it's going to be safe and more effective than what's already out there in the market to treat a medical condition. And phase 3 is where they look for safety and efficacy in human trials. And then it does have to have justification for outperforming tirzepatide, for example, before it becomes FDA approved. And this is where the pharmaceutical companies look for a particular indication or a particular disease in which they will now bring it to the marketplace. Now, it's interesting because a lot of people will say, well, these are naturally occurring peptides. Why can't we just use these? And the real thing is, anytime you are making a claim, claiming to treat obesity, for example. The FDA would want to know the data. Like if you're making claims that water treats cancer, then they're going to say, okay, cool, show me the evidence. Is it safe? Is it safe and effective? Is it safer and more effective than current drugs that are on the market to treat cancer? And so retatrutide falls into that category. And while GLP-1 naturally exists in your body, every single organ system making GLP-1s, your liver makes a lot of it, your gut probably makes the lion's share, your brain, your hypothalamus and pituitary glands are continually monitoring the expression of GLP-1 so that they know what to do with the other hormones in the body. It relates to energy expenditure and energy needs, energy demands. It's a life or death kind of sensor. The GIP is made primarily in your liver and in your pancreas, and it shows the stability and regulation of insulin. How well can you get that energy source into the cells? And then glucagon. Glucagon's are really powerful. The third molecule, the third peptide in this beautiful symphony that really amplifies the performance levels of the body. And glucagon's made primarily and stored in the liver, some in the muscles and in other organ systems like the gut. But when your blood sugar is outside of the range of the need of insulin, so you eat a meal, shortly after the meal, your blood glucose is going to spike. If you don't believe me, wear a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. And as it spikes, now your pancreas produces insulin. It says, all right, let's bring it back down. And so all the sugar ideally goes into the cells for energy. But it's glucagon that's more active 90% of the time. If you're fasting too long, you could be doing more harm than good, because if your liver, the glucagon is there and it's sensing we don't have any excess glucose and blood sugar is dropping, well, that's going to wake you up at night, because your liver starts turning on the gluconeogenesis, where we need to break down proteins in the muscles or the glutes to help increase blood sugar supply in the blood. Now, this is really, really critical, because glucagon also turns on mitochondrial biogenesis. It helps with energy expenditure, so you're actually burning more energy just even when you're not exercising. By the way, don't do any of these GLP-1s without adding exercise. With that said, this triple agonist, the way that Eli Lilly stacked these three together, this is a synthetic version. I mean, you are now turning on the signal that didn't exist before that, or it existed, but it was a much more muted response. If you think about how many people, millions of Americans, and we could go into the food industry and what's happened there, but so many of us have a broken switch. We don't know when we're full. My Japanese teacher, Dr. Maekawa, she used to say the greatest sin you can commit is overeating. In other cultures, people can regulate the volume of food that they're eating easier than you can in the United States. And if you don't believe me, just travel to those countries. So while retatrutide is this beautiful molecule, it's basically correcting this deficit. And if you apply the right lifestyle with it, that's where you can have long-term benefits, where you're not dependent on any of these GLP-1s. Now, tirzepatide, semaglutide, you do want to cycle, and you want to work with a medical team that actually knows when to cycle you off, cycle you back on, how to put the right exercise routine, the right detoxification routine, correcting the gut so that you're not ending up with acid reflux all day, or this really dangerous condition called gastroparesis, where your digestive system just shuts down. Using peptides, a lot of people are purchasing GLP-1s through unknown sources, these research use only peptides. The FDA is very clear. There's several warning letters. Cease and desists have gone out on for some of these peptide manufacturers who they don't really have any kind of certificate of analysis that can justify what they're giving you. And on your part, you have to say that you are using it for research, not for human consumption. So this is where we only use 503A, 503B compounding pharmacies. If you want to go deeper and find out if some of these peptides might be good for you, just go to agelessfuture.com. My team will help you get with one of our health ascension specialists, who will determine the right blood labs that is needed for you to meet with the medical team, and then they can let you know what's going to be best for you. Do it the scientific way, and do it with proper medical oversight and getting it from the right sources. That's where you can really win this game. I appreciate you being on the community, and I'll see you on the next video.